I am Anna Seawold, and this is Authentic Parenting, a podcast about growing ourselves while raising our children. I'm a psychologist, educator, and parent coach. And on this podcast, I explore how you can connect to your authentic self, practice radical self-care, and raise emotionally healthy children. Let's break the cycle of generational trauma for a more peaceful, kind, and compassionate world. Today, reclaiming your inner child, heal the past, and live fully. As a listener of this podcast, you're probably familiar with the term inner child. But what does that really mean? Do we all have one? And if so, how do we connect with it? The whole concept can feel a little strange or abstract at first. What does inner child healing actually involve? Does everyone need it? What if you can't access your inner child? Is the inner child always wounded? And how does this work relate to something like parts work? Or are they the same thing? I am speaking with a returning guest, a dear friend and an amazing human being, Nina Mongendre. She has her first book out, and it's called Reclaiming Your Inner Child, a journey of childhood and ancestral healing. I met Nina at the party, and we immediately connected and developed a deep friendship. Nina is one of those people who I really enjoy talking to. She is a French-American born in Hong Kong, was inspired by her mother's volunteer work with Mother Teresa. Growing up in Paris nurtured her appreciation of philosophy and the arts, leading her to study art history at Brown University and work at Sotheby's in New York. She taught yoga and meditation for over 15 years, deepening her understanding of the mind-body connection. After losing her parents in her 20s, she dedicated herself to studying ancestral trauma, later integrating family constellations, neuroemotional coaching, and shamanic healing into her practice. Through her unique approach, she helps clients reclaim their inner child, heal generational wounds, and rediscover joy in everyday life. She lives in France with her husband and 2 daughters. Besides the book, she is also the creator of a card deck called Healing the Inner Child, 44 card deck and guidebook. And I have 2 copies, one in my office and one in my home. And I just love engaging with this card deck. The illustrations are absolutely gorgeous. I'll have a link in the show notes to her website where you can find everything about her, get hold of the card deck, and purchase her book. As I mentioned, she has been on the podcast before. Here are 3 episodes for your listening pleasure. Number 1, who we are and how we heal. Number 2, how changing your story can change your life. And number 3, Nina and another podcast guest, Samir Chopra, joined me in a philosophical exploration in this episode called What is Home? A Philosophical Exploration. Now, before we get to today's conversation, I want to make a quick announcement. It's an important one. The 10th anniversary of the podcast is approaching very soon. To celebrate a whole decade of the podcast and the amazing community we have built together, we're planning something very special, a retreat. This will be a beautiful opportunity to step away from day to day, connect in person, reflect, laugh, and celebrate all that we have created together over the years. You'll get to meet me in person, Nina Mongendre, and other fans like you, and it will be really, really worth your while. Currently, we have a wait list. If your heart's saying yes, even just a little, we would love to know. Fill out the quick form to let us know you're interested and want to be kept in the loop as details unfold. Note, This is not a reservation, just a way to say, keep me posted. By putting your name on the form, you're not committing to anything. Simply, you're indicating that you're interested. And I hope you are interested because we're planning something magnificent. Go to authenticparenting.com/retreat to fill out the quick form, and you'll be on the wait list. You'll be the first one to know when we unfold the details. And now, please enjoy, and thank you for listening. Well, I'm so joyful to see your face through the computer and hopefully soon in person. I'm going to ask you today some very basic, simple questions about the inner child, because I have some confusion, I have to admit. And I think the listener, I'm going to come from an angle that my listener wants to learn about the inner child. They don't know much. I think it would be helpful for a lot of people, right? There is a lot of conversation in the ethos about trauma, inner child, this therapy talk. It's just too much. But you wrote the book, so you've done the work. I think you're the right person. So let me take a look at my notes. I think my first question would be, what is an inner child?
So the inner child is a part of us, younger. I would argue even that it could be as young as yesterday. I mean, that's obviously, it's not a child, but this is maybe a side note, but I just kind of, I don't know why it feels important to mention this in the beginning, and I'll go back to inner child. But I've done amazing, potent, work and connection work with my 20-year-old self, my 25-year-old self. So just to give the reader a framework, inner child work doesn't just end the moment you turn 13. So the inner child, it's both an archetype, as Carl Jung talked about the magical child, the divine child, the eternal child. And we can dive into those if you're interested also. But when we refer to the inner child, it's a part of us. It's a younger part of us that experienced childhood, of course, experienced their caregiver, their parents, their mother or father, whoever was present. And that part of us is still here. So it's this belief that just because time has passed, physically, psychologically, it doesn't mean that there is no part of you that is still that age anymore. So the 5-year-old, the 6-year-old, the 7-year-old, whatever age you've been, you can connect with the wounds, with the gifts, with the creativity, with the needs of those younger ages. And the reason they're so potent, as you know so well, Anna, and the amazing work that you do with this podcast, parenting, mothering, being a father, it's so deeply shapes who we become, who we are. And so inner child work is the opportunity to not change our parents, not go back and judge, but to go back and repair, to nurture, to offer, to meet the needs that our parents, without judgment, our caregivers, whoever raised us, whichever adults were around, they were not perfect. No single adult can be perfect. But the child has that expectation of unconditional love, almost of a godlike figure, right, from any caregiver. And so the idea is that now, as we are adults reading this book or doing this work, it's up to us now. Like, it's no longer up to our parents, whether they're alive or not. They can't do it. They did whatever they were able to do when they were around, if they were around, and the rest is really up to us. And so that is how, for me, that's what the inner child is. On a soul level, the inner child is our essence as well. It's the part of us, we could say it's literally our soul. It's that beingness, aliveness that was with us even before we were conceived, if we believe in that. But let's say from the moment of conception, who is you? Who is that awareness that defines who you are, no matter what age you are? And our inner child was there from the very, very beginning of our existence in this body. And so I think that's also important, because inner child work can sound heavy. It can sound like, oh my God, I have to go back to my childhood. I don't want to. But I'd like to remind those who are listening that there's just such a rich opportunity to reconnect with the vitality, the joy, the creativity. There's such abundance that you receive as a treasure when you do this work, when you reconnect with the wounded inner child. And so you receive back tenfold what you invest in doing this connection work. Because it really is a relationship, really. It's a relationship between you and you. And so you're
Wow.
just only receiving from it.
That's nice. So from your book, I took a quote. It says, "Our inner child exists in multiple forms, a memory from the past, a living part of us, a universal archetype, and an unconscious aspect of our psyche." It just summarizes what you just said. For those of us who are confused, what is the inner child? Where is it located? But what I loved what you said was it's not always about the wounds. You said it's also about the gifts and the joys. I feel like there is also this misunderstanding around doing inner child work. People always think it's about just this being wounded and broken and however you want to call it. But I also love the word gifts because it's both. It's both. And when you said you don't have to go back, like where are we going back anyways?
Yeah.
Is it in our memory? And I have another question. Is inner child work arts work?
That's a really good question. I would love if we could invite an IFS or a parts work practitioner, because I am not trained in IFS, although I've studied it and I love it. And I've read Richard Schwartz's book, No Bad Parts, and followed some of his other, teachings. I don't think there's always an inner child part behind a protector, behind a firefighter. But in my experience, there often is a younger part, a scared part. And same in family constellations. It's not always inner child, but I would say almost 90% of the time, the inner child is going to show up because that is just the vulnerable aspect of us. And like you said, the gifted, the creative, the innocence of who we are on a deep, deep level before there were judgments, before we cared what the world thought about us. And we were playful and we're so aligned with our joy. And so that is, to me, so important to reclaim that part, that aspect of us.
Can I admit something shamelessly? I feel like I live my life like that inner child that you're describing. Either I haven't grown up, I am stuck in some kind of developmental traumatic phase, but I feel like how I interact with the world, who I am, how I perceive myself. And I never voiced this, but I feel like I am that child all the time.
Well, that's the goal of all this work, is to get there.
I don't know if I have done the work, but I've always felt that way.
Mhm.
Like on my phone, as you can see on the home screen, like my wallpaper of my phone is my 5-year-old self
Wow.
picture, this black and white picture. And this is how I perceive myself. Like who I am today, I feel like I am that person always. How I see the world, how I like walk, how I get excited, how I cry about something. I feel like I have this childlike way of being. And I don't know if that's a stunted growth type of thing, but it serves me. Like it makes me a lot lighter and happier. Of course, I go through life experiencing heavy things and dark things. But I feel that deep connection with that childlike, inner child, whatever you want to call it, part. So I don't know. I think I feel like I'm merged with that. So I don't see it as a part of me. I don't know if that's where my trauma is. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think it's actually the opposite. You're going to be teaching us about how you did that, because this is the goal as I see it. This is the goal of this work and one of my very wise friends feels the same way. She's in her 70s now and she's done this work for years and years, many forms of work. And she exactly described it in the same way. She's like, this is finally, I'm at peace and I'm just looking at nature with the eyes of a child. And I'm growing plants and I don't want to go fast. I don't want to achieve anything. I'm just living. And when you describe how you see the world, to me, that's the greatest accomplishment. Like that is where I would like to arrive at. And, Henri Matisse, the painter, he said, the artist has to look at life as he did when he was a child. So this is where, and Picasso said something similar. This is the greatest swamis, the sages throughout time and space have said, like, you have to reconnect with the child. Like Jesus even, right? He said those who will enter the gates of heaven is those who see through the eyes of childhood, of their own inner child. And so this is very wise of you and such a blessing that you have that experience.
I haven't done anything. I've always felt that way. And I had a conversation with Frank Anderson, the trauma expert of recording, or maybe it is in the podcast. I interviewed him a couple of times. We talked about this. He also looks very young and feels very young. He's 60. And we talked about this. Why is that we are so connected and we behave childlike? We see the world like we are. I don't know why that is, but that's how I live my life. And I haven't done anything in particular to sort of connect to it. Maybe through my trauma, I protected it. I don't know, but I don't want to psychoanalyze myself. Let's talk about how can someone know if there is this conversation about your unmet needs when you were a child are playing out today in your daily life. So my question to you is, and it's a bit of a contradictory, not that I'm arguing with you, but I'm coming from a different angle. How do we know if that's from our childhood, that unmet need from our inner child, or it could be an unmet need like today, a current one? Why does everything has to be connected to some need in the childhood, right? The childhood is over. We had needs. They were unmet. How are these unmet needs affecting us today? And how do we parse that these are my today's needs and these are my past needs? Is this even a good question?
It's a very good question, because I think in our very self-help oriented society, we can tend to really get lost and get in our heads around overdoing work on ourselves. Like I see that in myself. And that's why I think it's a very good question. In a way, who cares?
Right? Yeah.
Right? It's like, I have a need. I don't have to justify it by going back to, oh, well, my mother didn't. It doesn't even matter. Let's just recognize, learn tools to voice the need, to communicate it clearly without judgment, and then to meet it for ourselves. And so it's the same thing, whether we want to go back to childhood or whether we want to do it, oh, well, yesterday, this need wasn't met. Because it's true. Like, and that's why I really love how you described that, how you feel your inner child is just completely with you. Because when we are in that state, there's no bitterness towards what we didn't receive. We're not in a place of turning energetically towards the past. So that's, the reason why I would encourage people to do inner child work is if they find themselves in a place where they're like really always looking back, negative, self-critical, like they're in a place of suffering. Otherwise, you don't have to like do inner child work. Really, if you're happy and you're experiencing what you're describing, just live now. I agree. Like there is no point. And same with the family constellations or the ancestral work. This is not just for fun. It's only if we really feel stuck and we have a pain point. So it's very intentional. It's not for entertainment purposes.
Oh, wow. So thank you so much for that clarification. So then tell me, how would someone know if their suffering comes from that? Like what would be the symptoms of me suffering because of my childhood wounds or inner child unmet needs and all of that?
Like anxiety, sadness, feeling disconnected from creativity, like seeing that you're looking out of the world and everything just seems kind of hopeless and dull, and like it feels like you're carrying too much on your shoulders. I can clearly feel that in myself at times in my life where I'm like, oh, why? Like, where's this voice coming from? Where's this belief, this thought pattern? I can clearly feel that it's not part of my life experience. And then that's when it's helpful to trace back, to ask yourself like a very simple question. Have I felt this before? Have I experienced something like this in my life? And if yes, When was that? Was I 2? Was I 3? Was I a teenager? Okay, let me go and support that original experience of it that may not have been addressed. Or no, it's not relevant to my life. Oh, interesting. Is this something my father carried? And I share examples in the book about this to make it, more applicable and concrete. But is it a fear that my mom or dad, my ancestor, my culture would have felt? And nobody on the outside can give you the answer to that. We're coming back to how it lives in our body right now. So you'll get a sense, yes, like that feels true to me. Just go with that and address it in the present moment. So whether it's that the tightness in the chest, like you feel you can't trust yourself, or you have a fear of voicing an opinion because you're afraid people will judge you, will reject you. Let's start with a simple example like that. Is it yours? Were you shamed, made fun of for speaking up in class? Maybe. Okay, go there. No. Maybe go to like what happened to your parents and grandparents. And if you don't know, that's okay. Just work with the somatic experience right now. Like hold yourself, support yourself, meet your needs around it now.
In your book, you write, you do not have to remember your childhood to heal it. And supporting your inner child doesn't require you to dredge up every detail of your past. I love that. Some individuals I work with had no recollection of their childhood when we began working together. Over time, however, memories or sensations gradually resurfaced, guiding them toward a deeper understanding of their inner landscape, and on and on. That was a quote. Yeah, some people don't have good memories from their childhood. I have very fragmented memories from my traumatic period. When I talk to my brother, he shares a story and I'm like, wow, that's so true. My memory jumps back, some of it maybe, but we know how the brain works. And I'll link to a really good episode how trauma affects the brain and the memory, right? Because there's no timestamp in the brain. It's not like your memories are tightly, neatly filed and stored, and you can just go in and out from the library, pull the catalog, the file that you need, observe the memory and put it back again. And every time you recall something and you tell a memory, you always add a detail, omit a detail, embellish, you tell it differently. So our memory is never the same. We always, tinker with it and we put it back. And so every time it changes. So talk to me about this a little bit, how we don't have to even know the details in order to heal. And how is that possible?
To me, it's possible because we exist, our soul, our essence, however we want to call that part of us that is the witness, the awareness that transcends our body and our experience exists beyond linear time, let's say. And so within us, also on an epigenetic level, as we know, they're doing more and more research about this. We do hold the trauma and the gifts. Let's remember, let's not only hold the trauma, we receive those gifts as well, all the things our ancestors have learned and mastered, and the blessings that they can offer us. But the pain as well, the unprocessed grief, the tension patterns, how you're going to hold tension in your body. Unfortunately, also some illnesses, right? And some predispositions. And so we don't have to remember in our linear sense of time or with images or with specific words or memories an event from childhood. We can access it in our bodies right now. And how do we do that? Well, through a trigger in the moment. So where in your life is there a strong reaction that maybe feels like it's out of proportion to the event? And we all have these, especially, for me, these came out more when I became a mother. It was like a daily opportunity for realizing my triggers were there all the time before I could hide it very, very well. And so can I work with that moment of trigger, like you said, like from yesterday, from today, and look at it that way, like use that opportunity in the present moment because it transcends time. And the other way is also through our narrative, like you so beautifully described, how every time we tell our story, whether we remember one moment from childhood or even the story about, well, my mother was that way, my father was that way, I was like this, I was the serious one, I was the troublemaker, all these labels. When we can change the words that we use so that they're life-giving, they're nourishing, they feel compassionate to you as you are hearing yourself speak them. It's like turning something chaotic of our past into something coherent is really inherently healing. And we can do that without having specific memories, and we can do it with having specific memories. And we're not trying to like convince ourselves that what wasn't, not at all. We are just lifting our perspective above the moment, above the scene, above the experience, having that meta, that soul level view, so that we can slowly, gradually, with tenderness, change how it exists and how we tell that story to others and to ourselves.
So I wrote down another question. I'm assuming there is a listener who may have this question. What if I can't access my inner child? Do I even have one? I think you partly answered this, but I want to sort of say a couple of words again. What if I can't access my inner child?
So this is why I love the tool of constellations, because sometimes for very good reasons, we might have protections in place where it's too painful, or maybe it's just not useful to access them in the way of guided journey, of meditation, of having our eyes closed and talking to our inner child. That's, I think, the most traditional way, right? In therapy and in a lot of therapeutic work, it's kind of like that. It's like, imagine yourself. So a few things you can do. One is you can find a picture of yourself as a child, and you can kind of just place it. You can make like you have it on your phone. I think it's so beautiful it's really an honoring of like, well, that was me then, and this is me now. And right away, when you have two objects or two people, you have a relationship. So without needing to access or do or imagine anything, okay, if you don't have a picture, write your name as if you had a childhood name that you used that was different, like a nickname, or just even draw yourself. Or find a picture of a niece, a nephew, a child that you feel connection with. It could be in a magazine, like literally just, or an object. So if you don't like the idea of working with a photo, take an object in your space, a plant, a crystal, anything. Put it on your table, put it in your space, put it on an altar, and just allow slowly this differentiation. This is my inner child. This is me. Just see what happens. How do you feel towards the object? It's okay if you feel nothing. It's okay if you feel sad. It's okay if you feel, I don't know if I trust them, or I don't know if they trust me. Everything is welcome.
You know what I'm trying to formulate in my head? Sometimes when I hear, even now when I heard you speak, when I hear people speak about inner child and things like that, it sort of, and maybe that's the purpose, I don't know. In my mind, I'm like, but why do I have to separate myself from that inner child and view it as a separate part, or like a fragmented almost part of me? Talk to me about this. Like, my first instinct is, why do we have to sort of fragment and disconnect and separate in order to access or see it? What's the purpose of that?
So first of all, you don't. If you feel that your inner child is fully integrated, then you don't. It's not, none of this is required. It can help when someone has no memory, can't identify in their body, or cannot imagine. Some people very easily, I'll say, okay, imagine your inner child. Where are they? And they'll be, well, they're sitting in my lap. I'm stroking her hair, and we're one, we're together. And
see, can I just say something to that? That doesn't land with me. That does not resonate. I'm like, ew, cringy. Like, I can't see myself like a 3-year-old on my lap. It just doesn't work with me. I don't know. I mean, is this a common reaction? Talk to me about this, because I don't feel like that. I feel like I'm a grown up. That was my childhood. My true essence is still in me. And I'm being contradictory on purpose. Like, and I know you don't take it the wrong way, but I always wanted to have this conversation with someone, that doesn't land with me. I am me. That part is within me. Yeah, I can't see myself. Like when they're like, go hold the hand of that little girl. I'm like, ooh, no. I'm a grown up and that's part of me, but I don't want to separate and go and see her in some setting. It just doesn't work for me. What is that?
It's called integration, Anna. You're wonderfully integrated.
I don't know. Maybe this is a different pathology.
No?
No?
Why? Like, why do we have to make things into pathology? Just because I wrote a book about this doesn't mean it serves everybody at all.
Tell me about your experience then. How do you see your inner child?
But for me, like I have the opposite,
with mine.
Yeah. I have the opposite issue of you, right? And this is why we write what we need to learn the most, right? Like we teach what we need to learn. I firmly believe that. And so it's with like so much humility that I offer this, because I am not at the place where you are yet. Like that's my goal for myself. But to me, like my inner child, I left her like far away. Like for me, she was more than separate, not only in the past, but like physically, I didn't want her anywhere near me. And so to me, that is like the only way initially that I could work with her, was to imagine her in the space, to look at her. I felt guilty. I'm like, yeah, well, I know I left you behind. I know I ignored all your feelings. Like, I know I shut everything out. And so to me, that feels natural. But for anybody listening, if this does not feel natural, then skip those parts. Like, do it your way. This is really like so important to me. Like in the book, that's why I offer, do a dance, like put on music and dance your inner child if you want, in you, like as part of you, as one or separate. Like there's really it's not like a right way to do it. And I really love that you're bringing this up, because we so often feel, well, I'm doing it wrong, or why can't I do it that way? That's because if you have that instinct, that means it's not for you. Like you don't need to do it. You don't need to see her as outside of you. And so if it's not helpful, don't, skip on to the ancestors or to some other aspect.
Yeah, so that's what I love about your work. You know what I love about your work? That integration, that connection. And once you described to me, like early on in our relationship, you said it's like a figure 8, the infinity, eternity symbol, the inner child, the presence of ancestors, and guidance of your future self. I love those 3 elements together, and especially the weight that you put on the ancestors. So speak to me about the value of that. Why is that? And how that can help our growth.
Yeah. And again, back to what you were saying before, just because exactly this horizontal infinity symbol, the horizontal figure 8, where we dwell when we are integrated, when we are whole, when we're seeing life through our eyes with that inner child fully integrated, we don't have to go to the past or to the future. It all converges into now. And so that image of the journey is for those of us who need to reach back in time to bring the inner child. Hey, come back, come back. I know I pushed you to the side. It wasn't voluntary, or maybe it was, but now I've changed my mind. I want you to come back. And then you journey, same thing, to your future self, which is just, again, a sense of who you are becoming, and it already exists. So if you can imagine your future wise self, that means she's already there. So within the present moment, all of this exists, and the ancestors as well. And we are the ancestors, right? We are the ancestors to the future generations. And so it's a simple, powerful image to me of how time, and the shamans talk about that, right? Like time loops. It's not a line. It circles around itself.
I want to read another part from the book, and I want to know about your own inner work, healing journey. And you write about your experiences in the book, especially with motherhood. Let's see. It's this one. With young daughters requiring constant attention, how could I possibly turn inward? That's a big question, right? Like, let's pause on this for a little bit. And I'm guilty of this too. Like, my podcast is raising our children, growing ourselves. Like, let's do this inner work and raise our children at the same time. But when I work with parents, sometimes I question that, because I see parents for whom that's a trap. And they sort of heavily focus on healing, trauma healing, doing inner work, and neglect their duty. I don't want to say neglect. It's a bit of a too harsh word, but they sort of withdraw in some part from actual parenting and living even in the present moment. They're so preoccupied with doing inner work, trauma work, because it's so woven in with this parenting. If you're a parent, you also have to work on yourself. Who said that? No, there are priorities. If you are a parent, unless, of course, I'm not saying this is like black and white. There's different variations of this. You can do your work and parent at the same time. You can focus on your traumas and put parenting aside for a while. You can just parent and never do your work. There's different variations of this. But what I see is it's just, I don't know. The messaging out there is very strong about you have to do your work if you are a parent, if you want to parent consciously. But I would like argue against that and say, no, you don't. Like you can do your inner work later or not so vigorously, maybe not now, but you need to be a parent. And yes, things may come up in your parenting. That's when you can address. But to create a separate task of inner work, I have a problem with that. Thank you for listening to me, because I am boldly expressing myself today on the podcast because I think you and I can talk about this. So I don't know if I should continue reading the rest of this quote, but maybe let's pause on this and discuss, then I'll continue the full quote.
I love what you're saying because I am guilty as charged, and I have seen the irony of this actually more recently. I think before I wasn't seeing the irony. And now, maybe after writing the book, I'm just more aware of this particular pattern. It is hilarious because I used to do this with yoga. You know, I would be angry or sad or upset. I'd be like, well, I'm going to do a 11-minute meditation to conquer inner anger, and that will take care of that. And then now it's the same thing. I obviously see, you know, I need to be to parent. I need to step in. I need to do emotional processing for my daughters. And a part of me is just like, oh no, I'm going to go listen to a podcast. I'm going to read a book. I need to take this workshop. I really need to be away for that whole weekend to do a retreat to take care of my trauma. And it's like complete escape from actually stepping in to where the real transformation would be, which would be to go where it's really uncomfortable, but actually be in real life, be in that parenting, be in that moment with the preteen. It's easier to do the self-work. I mean, at least for me, right? It's like, let's just go and do our little yoga retreats. And then you get angry and upset because the kids interrupt me when I'm on my little Zoom, you know, circle class. I'm like, shh, you know, leave me alone. And so it's so funny and it's so ridiculous. Like, and I see it so clearly in myself. So I 100% agree with you.
I know. Is it a sign of trauma or the culture to blame? Because like, everybody's so preoccupied with this inner work and trauma. And if you're not doing it or talking about that, then there's something wrong with you. But it turns people into self-centered people who are constantly obsessed with growth and inner healing and all of this. It's like, can we just put this aside for a moment and like live in this real world with messiness, with repairs? It's okay. Like, our parents didn't do any of it, but, you know, they survived. And yes, we are more conscious, but we don't have to dial it all up. And, you know, I feel like it becomes this, it just turns me off. And you were not there during my live event last year, the October live event. I wrote a song. And I performed it live in front of the audience. It was kind of, I put myself in a silly position, but I wrote a song about mocking sort of this culture of trauma talk and my attachment wounds and gaslighting, all those common words. I wrote a poem and I rapped. So I never played it publicly, but it was played in front of the people. But it's so true, you know, it's like it was inspired by my client who came to my office, and the way she talked to me was like this. I've done so much inner work. My husband constantly triggers me. He's not as evolved as me. When he triggers me, my childhood wounds get activated and I disassociate. She was talking like this for like 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? No one talks like this. And so that inspired me to write that song. And maybe one day I'll play it on a podcast or exclusively for people. I have a recording, but that's enough. Like we don't have to fully devote ourselves to this, work.
Yeah, because we're not living. Like when we do that, we're not in that moment. It's a way, to me, it's a way I freeze. Like it's a survival mechanism. Very much so, like a flight and a freeze combined. And social media, I mean, we're all doing it like with parenting, but we're doing it in so many other ways as well in our culture where it's really becoming challenging to just be with a person, right? And connect and face, it's uncomfortable. Like relationship with humans are going to have conflict with your children, whether it's at work. So of course it's easier to dive into improving yourself, but in the end, it's not going to solve what needs to be looked at.
Yeah, no, you can't just improve yourself. You have to grow in a context of a society, of a system, of a culture, in your own home environment. You can't just separate yourself. It's like, it's easy being a monk, a Zen monk in a monastery. Well, try to parent and live in a real world, monk. You will be triggered too,
all day long.
all day long, right? So, let's not fool ourselves. So let me read the rest of the quote because I want to know about your own inner child work. And with young daughters requiring constant attention, how could I possibly turn inward? Learning to hold space for my children's needs and feelings demanded a lot of courage and humility I had never tapped before. But as I gradually began to untangle web of my own repressed emotions, my daughter's outbursts sent fewer shock waves through my nervous system. I thought that was very beautiful and true. And I want to ask you to talk to me about your own journey of doing this inner work and the inner child.
And that's the real work, right? Because it was inner and outer. So it's because of the meltdowns that yes, I read books, I had a parenting coach as I described, but I had to like really sit with her, with that little 3-year-old, my older daughter at that moment. And in doing that, I wasn't consciously doing it. It was only later that I had that realization that I was also sitting with myself, like with a version of me that needed to have the meltdown, that never allowed herself to have the meltdown. And this is where the inner and outer work actually merged into real life. That wasn't escaping her. And so that's really becoming a mother, I would say, has been the journey. So my older daughter she's going to be 13 in the fall. So she's 12. So it's been 12 years of inner child work, but I didn't choose it. Like I didn't sit there and think, oh, I'm going to have children and I'm going to heal my inner child. It was just like, there's a child and so much is coming up for me. It was just flooding me, at each growth stage. And so I was doing the work just because I didn't have any choice. It wasn't like I was interested and fascinated. I was like, this is just how I need to survive because otherwise I'm shut down as a mother. I can't connect. Baby was easier. Like the baby phase was kind of easy because they didn't say no. There was no buttons to push. It was cute. But then as soon as we hit toddler age, and then my second daughter each child to me has brought up different aspects of things I need to look at, but with them. So it's like when I do the work well, I don't escape from them. I'm able to, it's so hard, but to stay open to who they are, not project how I want them to be, not project what my mother would say if I was that child. I mean, there's immense amount of layers where I really have to strive in that figure 8 to be here now and to not dive back into the past or imagine how messed up they're going to be in the future if they spend another hour on a screen. Like it's such a delicate balance too of stay present. Like what's going on now? How are you in your body? How are they? Like, let's just not go into escaping the situation, Let's really simply stay human. Like you said, I really loved what you said. It's together. It's with the society. It's with the other people. It's with all the mess ups that we're going to inevitably have, like countless failures at not projecting onto them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely does. So what steps have you taken? And let me ask you something. Do you still do inner child work? How do you connect to your inner child? Did you have daily things that you do or regular things? I'm curious about that. What does that look like on a practical level now?
Yeah. So, like what we were saying before, so for me right now, it doesn't feel so much as separate. Like, I don't need to feel her as separate. Sometimes I do if I'm doing a constellation, that's helpful to see the distance, or on a day-to-day basis, it's more like a moment of pause and of checking in. If I feel like I feel I didn't voice a need, I feel some anger rising, I feel something is a little off, like I'm frustrated, I'm not doing well in the moment. And then I'll just check in, but not as if she's separate. It's more like what you were describing. It's more checking in with the part of me that wants to play, that wants to have fun, is like, okay, well, what are we doing now? Like, what do we need to do? Like, should we just go outside and walk and find a field of poppies? And it doesn't have to be a several hour event, just a little moment as I'm going through the normal day. Also, my oracle. So the oracle deck, Edie is the illustrator, and her art. So like art, creativity to me is a practice that just by essence, like awakens, that part of us, that playful part of us. And so pulling a card and simply looking at the colors, looking at the animals, it helps me if I'm feeling that I've lost that connection, because it's not like she isn't there all the time. It's more that I feel like I rise up into my head, and when I'm like in this frantic mind space of achievement and of goals and of I need to do this, like the to-do list, I really feel a disconnection from my heart, from my body, my entire body even, right? And I think we all feel this in being in front of a computer a lot. And so through art, through music, and through movement, like through just even like hip circles, like something super simple, or spinal, cat cow, anything to bring me back into the body will automatically, I feel, reconnect me with that inner child.
Does your inner child have a name? Do you have a nickname, pet name?
No,
Do people have that sometimes?
not really. Like what I've found with clients, sometimes it's however their parent would call them. Initially, when you start doing this work, you might hear that nickname that you were called as a kid. But for me, it's more sensation. Like in my body right now as an adult, like what you were saying, it's more like a bubbling, a sense of lightness, a sense of joy and ease. Like as I feel my body move through space and interact with others, there's a sense of leaning back. There's a sense of trusting, of listening. That's when I know that I'm at peace, like that I've been honoring my own needs, whether, again, it's irrelevant, right? Because if you're honoring your needs and you're feeling fulfilled, well, then you've honored all parts of you, right?
Yeah, that's well said. Then you talk about 12 initiations. I also want to ask some things from the book. What are those 12 initiations?
So I wanted to make this playful, because it's like we were saying, it's heavy. It's like, here we go. Let's go into our childhood pain. Let's look at our mother, our father. Just those topics can be so heavy. And I'm just tired. Like I'm like, I can't write an inner child book and just have it be boring and heavy, because everybody's inner child is just going to not throw the book out the window if that's the case.
If they know how to read.
If they know how to read, exactly.
If it's a 2-year-old inner child, they don't know
That's
how
true.
to read.
And so I was like, how can we make this fun? How can we make this like a little bit gamified, like a journey where you gain access, you unlock different levels. You get gifts. So I also have like little gifts in there. And I just wanted this idea that we can also, and I'll tell you what the 12 initiations are, but just this idea of a journey, right? We're so programmed in our culture with this vision of the hero's journey, right? In most movies and most books, and there's so much truth to that. I was like, well, yeah, but so this let's embark on this journey, but it's an inward journey, and we're transforming instead of conquering things on the outside or changing other people or going out and finding external treasures. We're really actually just shifting what is, like alchemizing a wound into a gift, into a source of vital energy, because it's all already in us right now. Like there's nothing that's not accessible. We just have to, sometimes it can be fun to like think of it as a rewriting the narrative through this journey. So that's why I had those. And the initiations are the maze. So we start with this idea that we're stuck in a maze. There are beliefs. We can't really see the clear path, because that's who I feel this work speaks to, is those of us who feel stuck. And then you're carrying a backpack, that's the second initiation, with rocks, with metaphorical burdens of your childhood and of your ancestry. And it's too heavy because the little child is struggling. And I share fables about that image of the little child struggling under the weight of this huge backpack. And this is what a lot of children do. Out of love for their parents, for their family, they say unconsciously, like, I'm going to take on this pain. I'm going to make you happy, mom or dad, or grandpa, grandmother. And then the compass. This is where I start talking about emotions and what lives in our body right now. How do we determine where we're heading? Like on any journey, are you going north? Like which direction are you going? Are you going to the mountain, to another country? And what guides us is our pain point of the moment. Like, what are you struggling with right now? With yourself, with relationships, with work, abundance, any topic. And that's going to be the compass. That's going to set the course for your own little journey that you'll create through the book. Then the guide, bringing in a resource, could be your future self. It could be an ancestor. It could be an animal energy, it could be an archetype. And then we enter the cave. So as Carl Jung, the image of the unconscious, right? The cave in shamanic work is where we travel, we journey to access information that lies beyond the realm of mind. And we meet our wounded child. And then we go a little deeper into the cave. And that's where we find the mother, the father, and the ancestors. And then even deeper, the shadows, the parts of us that some are personal, some are collective, that we have really not wanted to own. It hasn't felt safe. We've shoved them way, way back. But there's gifts there. So that's like actually where the real treasure lies, is when we can see these aspects of us. And then the dragon transforms, it carries us out of the cave, and we go into the stars. And I talk about constellations and our story as almost this map, right? We can see our ancestors as forming a certain shape in the sky, having a certain constellation, just like our astrology sign has an impact. But we get to create our own story. Like we get to relate to what is in the stars, and we get to add our own understanding of it, our own narrative around it. And then at the end, we come home where there is no separation between inner child, between future self. It's just all one. Like we're home where we can only belong, which is within our body, within ourself.
And so that's the path that you designed, right? For this inner healing. And does a person always start with the maze, or do you sort of assess where the person is on this journey? Do they have to go through all the initiations? I'm really curious about that.
It's a great question. And I would really say to someone, like, trust yourself. And I do say it in the chapter where you build your map. If there's one particular initiation or theme that draws you, just do that one. Like start with that, because I do share a lot of exercises, and I didn't mean it to be overwhelming. And so it's not like you'll be less enjoying the journey or less, quote unquote, I mean, there's no success here, but less integrated if you don't do all of them. This is the whole practice, right? Is what do you want to do? Like, what do you feel like doing? Maybe it's only going to be pulling cards for each initiation, and then take a picture of the 12 cards from an oracle deck, from a tarot deck. Maybe you're going to make a playlist of 12 songs and one song to represent each initiation. And then you just dance it and that's it. And then maybe you're going to create a collage for each one, maybe for two of them. Maybe you decide, you know what? I want to look at where I'm stuck in a maze, where there are beliefs that don't belong to me. And I have a difficult relationship with my mother, and I'm going to do that. And for me, that's enough for this month, for this year, for this lifetime, whatever it might be. That's how I hope the reader will feel free to work with the book.
An exercise or a question for the listener to reflect on, something that they can do based on your guidance towards their inner child healing or connecting.
Very simple. You're not going to like it, Anna, because it's separate from that.
No, it's okay. I'm obviously being,
It's a snapshot, like a picture of what's happening. And this, I always feel this is important to say whenever you do any of this work, it's a picture at this moment in time. Tomorrow, it can look different. So don't beat up on yourself. Don't feel like, oh my God, like my inner child is so far away. No, this is right now. It can change. Like we're just looking at a picture of how it lives in you right now. So take two objects, anything, like literally objects. It could be a pen and a book or anything on your table, a cup. And with your intention, just one will represent your inner child and one will represent your adult self. And place them in your space or on your table and just see, are they side by side? Is one farther away? Like is to you? So look at, is your inner child very close to you, the person you're placing the objects? Because that can be interesting. Is one object bigger than the other? So is the inner child object smaller than the one that you picked for the adult? Or not, because it can be interesting. So I worked with a client actually yesterday, and she picked, it was so fascinating because her inner child just kept not trusting her, like trying to run the show in her life. Because when she was very young, like 7 years old, she had a loss of her grandmother who felt like a mother figure, and she could never trust that her mom had it together, like that she was going to handle things. And so the 7-year-old just basically become the classic, right? Parentified daughter. I have to take care of everything. I have to be big. I have to make myself so big. And so I have this cup here, which is really big compared to the other cup I chose. So she chose a very big object to represent her inner child. And then a very small one, tiny, like 1 inch. And the other one was like 12 inches tall to represent the adult. The adult was tiny. And so right there, in less than 30 seconds, we had a very clear picture of the work that needs to be done if she wants to change this. So just that. And then you can work with this. You can bring the inner child closer. And how does that feel? So check in with your body. How is that? Does that feel comfortable? And then for you, Anna, maybe you pick one object where it's just you and your inner child is like you place it inside. You can do that too. That's what I love is be creative. Like there's absolutely no limit. There's no wrong way of doing any of this. And you can speak, you can say statements, you can move around. And like spatial awareness is often very helpful for people because when we're in our head, it can be very hard to relate to aspects of us. And so I find that through objects, we make the invisible visible and we get the opportunity to relate differently, even to our adult self, right? Like if I see myself as this adult self and I place, for example, belonging or home, I find another object and I see, oh, they're super close together. Okay, good. Today I'm feeling aligned. I'm feeling close to home. And then tomorrow the object is at the other end of the room. Like, okay, something is happening here.
Yeah, I love what you say about making the invisible visible. And I remember in my library here at my home, when you came one day and we were talking about your book, it was in the beginning stages. And you did, I don't know what I asked, but you visually said, can you place your mom and your dad, the footsteps and all of that. So when I engaged like that, it was very interesting. And after that, I have to say, I'm going to show my background. After that, I took my mom's and my dad's pictures and placed it behind me. So that was pretty helpful because I never had my parents' pictures, displayed in my home or anywhere really. But after doing that little exercise with you, I sort of brought them into my life more actively and made the invisible visible. And not only I made that visible, but it's always here in my little office area. They are behind me, they're protecting me, and they're side by side together. And every time I come into my office space, I look at that picture, I think of you and that day. It's very interesting. Yeah.
So
Can you see
beautiful.
it? It's
Yes, yes. And that's their place. Like this is where they belong. It's behind us. They gave us life and they're supporting you, but they don't
yeah.
belong in front, and this is what you'll see so clearly for someone who will just take these objects or take these footsteps. You can take pairs of shoes. And if you find that your mother and father are, very much close to you or next to you or in front of you, again, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with this, but it would be helpful and supportive to you to see if you can work with them and that they can come behind you, because you want to face life. You want to face your future. You want to face what you love doing. Your children, if you have them, they'll be in front of you.
Wow, that's great.
Well, first, it's such a joy speaking with you. Every time I'm in awe of what comes up and just how connected I feel to how you view things. And I'm just very grateful to be here. And I think we talked about everything. I'd love to close with this encouragement for everyone that this is available, like this place that Anna is living her life from.
Oh my gosh.
Available to us.
Maybe that's the wounded place.
No, but I think it's so important, like that we don't always have to be improving ourselves, like that at some point you actually get to enjoy life. This is why we're doing all this hard work, and we can actually, yes, of course, we're always learning, we're always on the journey, but at some point, like it becomes enough that you can enjoy life, enjoy what you have, enjoy the failures, start again. And so that's what I would love to leave us with today is to nurture, like by nurturing yourself, by nurturing this creative part of you. Keep creating, like in whatever way it means to you, but we're all artists. We are all have our unique song simply by being ourselves, simply by walking into a room, the way you smile, the way you hold your body, the softness, all of it matters. All of it is important. And so, yeah.
So basically, to allow yourself to be fully human. Conversation. You have to improve yourself. You have to optimize yourself, maximize your parenting, yourself, your weight, your mind, your body. That you are separate from the whole, and you need to make yourself perfect in every way. I have a problem with that. Maybe we can discuss this in another episode. Let's put a pin on that topic, because I feel like that's a very uniquely Western phenomenon and a very recent, maybe very applicable to the individualistic, way of living and being.
Yes,
You can be a part of the whole and imperfect, and it's fine.
And children are like that, right? Until they get the message, I don't know, maybe around 6, 7, they don't care at all if what they're doing is efficient, is acceptable, any of that, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I truly enjoyed seeing you and connecting. And when we meet in a few months, maybe we can converse and talk about other things. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Always a pleasure.
That concludes today's conversation, my dear listener, and I hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. Be sure to hit that follow button so you don't miss future episodes, and take a moment to leave a rating and review. It really helps others find the show. I would love to hear your thoughts and takeaways. Join the conversation in the Authentic Parenting Facebook group, or visit the contact page at authenticparenting.com/contact to get in touch. Authentic Parenting is an ad-free show, and your donations is what makes this podcast possible. Support the show by visiting authenticparenting.com/support or becoming a patron at patreon.com. Your contributions make it possible for me to continue bringing you weekly episodes. And as always, connect to the present moment, to yourself and your children. Until next week, I am Anna Seawold. Thank you so much for listening.